The engine stopped so hard my helmet jerked forward. A thick steel chain blocked the lane, and a silver Aurora GX5 sat sideways like someone wanted us trapped. Flames roared just ahead, close enough to feel the heat on my face. Captain Ruiz grabbed the bolt cutters, but a woman in satin pajamas jumped out, screaming, "You're not cutting HOA property." Smoke rolled over us. Dispatch kept yelling. Seconds slipping away. Then Ruiz repeated the address over the radio, and the woman's entire face drained white as if she suddenly realized whose house was burning. Lydia Cromwell didn't step aside. She doubled down. Before Captain Ruiz could even lift the bolt cutters again, she shoved her arm out like a traffic barrier and snapped. I said, "No, this road is private. Your truck shouldn't even be here." Her voice cut through the smoke sharper than the alarms blaring from the house up the hill. That was Lydia, always leading with the rules. 7 months ago, when she took over the HOA, she'd turned Redwood Canyon into her own personal kingdom. Overnight, she'd rewritten guidelines, enforced fines, and lectured neighbors like we were tenants renting space inside her imagination. And ever since the board approved her precious chain barriers, she'd been gloating about keeping unapproved vehicles out, especially mine. She jabbed a finger at the padlock. "You're not destroying HOA property just because you're impatient. Go to the main gate. Use protocol." Behind her, the fire's glow brightened, flickering off the metal posts she'd fought so hard to install. Each second burned hotter. "Ma'am, step aside," Ruiz warned, voice tightening. "We have confirmed entrapment. You are obstructing emergency operations." Lydia scoffed. "Protocol exists for a reason. I don't make exceptions." A scream erupted from somewhere up the hill, high, faint, and terrified. Ruiz froze. I froze. Even Lydia faltered. For the first time since she stormed out of that SUV, her confidence cracked. Just a flicker, just enough for a thought to slip across her face. What if the rules she worshipped were about to turn on? Her Lydia's crusade didn't start with chains. It began with paper notes taped to my door every morning like she was delivering subpoenas. Grass over regulation height. House numbers too reflective. Unauthorized vehicle noise at 5:42 a.m. The last one came after I'd returned from a night fire. I was still peeling off my gear when she marched across my yard, waving a clipboard like a sword. "You think being a firefighter makes you special?" she barked. "The rules apply to everyone." I didn't bother arguing. People like Lydia didn't listen, they enforced. Within a week she mailed me 2 fines and left a voicemail accusing me of creating a hazardous aesthetic. Whatever that meant. The wild part, I wasn't the only target. Residents whispered about her sudden inspections, her late-night walks, her obsession with measuring fences, with a chrome ruler she carried in her purse. But for me, the harassment had a sharper edge, because I'd told her twice at HOA meetings that blocking secondary roads would compromise emergency response. And every petty notice she left felt like her way of saying, "Stay in your place." Things escalated the morning I caught her photographing my driveway before sunrise. The sky was still navy blue when I stepped outside, boots unlaced, rubbing sleep from my eyes. There she was, standing at the bottom of my property line, flash on, snapping photos of the concrete like it was evidence in a federal case. "What are you doing?" I called out. She didn't even flinch. "Documenting violations." For what cracks in the Earth's surface, she ignored that and kept shooting. Then, without warning, she walked onto my property heels, sinking into the wet lawn, nose wrinkling as if my grass personally offended her. "This oil stain," she said, crouching like a forensic specialist, "is grounds for citation." "That's not oil," I said. "It rained last night." "Then you should have anticipated runoff." She snapped another photo. "Irresponsible." I stepped closer, voice low. "Lydia, you can't just trespass because you feel like it." "It's not trespassing," she said, standing tall. "I'm performing a community duty." My radio crackled from inside the house, dispatch testing our night crew channel. A reminder of the real dangers, the ones she pretended didn't exist. She didn't look at the radio, didn't care. Her eyes stayed locked on me, cold and victorious, like she'd just planted another flag on land she believed she owned. The next HOA meeting wasn't just tense, it was rigged. Lydia strode in with a packet labeled Traffic Integrity Initiative. Inside were diagrams of chain barriers stretching across every secondary entrance in Redwood Canyon. I stood up the moment she finished her pitch. "These chains would add minutes to emergency response times," I said. "Minutes that cost lives." Lydia didn't debate. She smirked. "Evan believes our neighborhood is at constant risk of disaster," she said, addressing the room. "Frankly, it sounds dramatic. Fear-based thinking." A few board members nodded, hypnotized by her confidence. I tried again. "Wildfire conditions are worsening. We need open access." She raised her hand. Enough. You're not a logistics expert. The motion passed. Just like that, the chains were approved. By the end of the week, steel posts were drilled into concrete and thick industrial chains hung across previously clear roads. Lydia toured the new barriers like a queen inspecting her fortifications. Residents complained about slow deliveries and emergency vehicles being rerouted. Lydia called it community protection. But the worst hit came a few days later, a formal notice claiming my continued agitation against HOA security protocols was grounds for review. Translation: she was coming for my place, and she knew exactly how to do it. The sheriff's deputy showed up on a Sunday afternoon, boots crunching on my gravel driveway as I finished washing my truck. He held a clipboard. My stomach sank. "Mr. Marks, we received a report of unauthorized utility work on your property." I blinked. "Utility work? I've been home all morning." He shrugged, clearly uncomfortable. "HOA states, you dug near the water line last night. That's impossible. I was on shift until 3 a.m. But Lydia must have filed the complaint before sunrise, right around the time she was photographing my driveway. The deputy glanced at the fresh hose on the ground and scribbled something. "Ma'am says there were suspicious noises." I exhaled sharply. She hears a cricket and thinks it's domestic terrorism. He coughed to hide a smile, but his tone stayed official. "Look, I'm just here because the HOA insists the report be filed." Behind him I saw Lydia standing 30 yards away, arms crossed, watching, like she was waiting for me to be handcuffed for watering my lawn incorrectly. "How many more fake complaints is she allowed to file?" I asked. He sighed. "As many as she wants, as long as she claims community concern." That was when I realized something: Lydia wasn't enforcing rules. She was building ammunition. The turning point hit at 12:19 a.m. I just finished wiping down Engine 7 after a long shift when dispatch's voice cracked through the station speakers. "Structure fire. 1198 Autumn Crest Lane. Possible entrapment. Repeat, possible entrapment. Autumn Crest Lane." The road Lydia had chained off. The road she'd insisted emergency crews never needed. My pulse spiked. We rolled out in seconds, lights cutting through the pitch-black canyon. As we turned toward the ridge, smoke appeared thick, rolling alive. The fire was big, too big, for how early it was. Then the engine jerked violently. We stopped. The chain glimmered across the road like a steel grin, blocking us. Again. Captain Ruiz was already out of the cab, shouting for the bolt cutters. Flames roared in the distance, wind pushing the fire uphill with cruel precision. And then headlights flared. A silver Aurora GX5 skidded to a halt beside the chain. Lydia stepped out wearing satin pajamas, hair loose, face flushed with outrage. "You are not cutting HOA property," she screamed, planting herself in front of Ruiz. "Go through the main gate. Protocol is protocol." Ruiz stared at her like she'd spoken another language. "Ma'am, there is confirmed entrapment. Move." She didn't. Smoke rolled over us like a warning. Flames in the distance surged higher. Ruiz lifted his radio. "Dispatch obstruction at Autumn Crest. Confirming the fire address now," static hissed. Then fire, location 1198 Autumn Crest Lane. Lydia froze. Slowly, terrifyingly slow, her expression cracked open, and in her widening eyes I saw it: recognition, fear, and the exact moment she understood who was trapped behind her own chains. For a moment nobody moved. Then, Lydia lunged for the padlock with trembling hands, fumbling the keys so badly they clattered onto the asphalt. "No, no, open," she sobbed, dropping to her knees. Captain Ruiz didn't wait. He shoved past her with the bolt cutters. "Move," he barked. The steel chain snapped with a sound that cut through the night like a scream. Our engine surged forward, tires spitting gravel as we powered up Autumn Crest Lane. Lydia chased behind us, barefoot, crying her daughter's name: Harper, Harper, until her voice cracked. When the house came into view, the whole top floor was already glowing like a furnace. Flames punched out the windows in pulses, each one brighter than the last. Neighbors stood in the yard, shouting conflicting directions. One pointed to the back. "Her room's upstairs, last window on the right. I saw her banging on it." Ruiz didn't hesitate. "Marks Davis, take entry." I hit the ground running. Heat slammed into me like a solid wall, but adrenaline drowned everything else. Behind us, Lydia was screaming for someone, anyone, to save her child, but her voice was already distant, lost behind the roar of the fire. There was no more time to argue. The house was seconds from total collapse. Inside was chaos. Smoke poured down the staircase in thick waves, swallowing our flashlights. Visibility dropped to inches. Every breath vibrated through my mask as we crawled deeper, following the wall, listening for any sound that didn't belong to the fire. "Harper!" I shouted, but the flames drowned everything. We cleared the lower rooms, fast, living room, kitchen, an office already collapsing, but nothing. The heat rising from the second floor was brutal. "Up," Ruiz ordered behind us. Davis and I climbed the stairs, each step groaning under our weight. Halfway up, a support beam cracked overhead, showering sparks down like burning rain. At the landing we split, left for Davis, right for me. I checked the first door empty, second bathroom, third locked. The heat radiating from behind it was like opening an oven. I stepped back and kicked hard. The door flew inward, revealing Harper curled unconscious near the far wall, smoke swirling around her like a veil. I rushed in, scooped her up, and turned just as a massive section of ceiling crashed onto the bed, sending flames shooting across the floor. "Go," Davis yelled, clearing debris with his axe. We barreled down the hall, Harper limp against my chest. At the stairs, Ruiz was waiting, hose line shielded to push back advancing fire. We made it out with seconds to spare. Behind us, the second floor flashed over one giant flame rolling from room to room, consuming everything Lydia had chained us away from. Paramedics grabbed Harper the moment we hit the lawn. They laid her on a stretcher, clipped an oxygen mask over her face, and started IV lines with rapid practiced movements. Her chest rose shallow but steady. Lydia collapsed beside her daughter, gripping her hand like she was afraid it might disappear if she let go. Her sobs were violent, raw, nothing like the woman who had screamed about HOA property minutes earlier. Behind us the house groaned. Then the roof folded inward, sending up a column of sparks that lit the entire street. Ruiz put a hand on my shoulder. "Delay cost us the second floor," he said quietly. "Could have held it to the attic if we'd gotten here 6 minutes earlier." He didn't need to say whose 6 minutes he meant. The investigation team arrived before sunrise. They moved around the wreck with scanners and heat-sensing tools. One of them spoke with Lydia while she knelt in the driveway, still wrapped in her smoke-stained pajamas. "Cause looks electrical," he told her. "Slow burn." With a faster response, this would have been contained to one room. Lydia didn't argue, didn't blame anyone else. She stared at the rubble, her rubble, like she was finally seeing the cost of her own rules. Neighbors whispered as the sun came up. Board members avoided her eyes. By the time the flames were out, Lydia wasn't the president of anything. Just a mother who finally understood the damage she'd created and the damage she couldn't take back. The fire was finally out, but the night wasn't over. Dawn crept over Redwood Canyon like a slow exhale, brushing pale orange light across what used to be the Cromwell house. Only the frame remained black, skeletal, dripping with water. Steam rose from the debris in long ribbons that twisted up into the cold morning air. Firefighters packed hose lines, their faces streaked with soot. Paramedics loaded their equipment. Neighbors lingered on the sidewalk in stunned clusters, the weight of the night pressing down on everyone at once. But nobody left. Not yet. Not while Lydia and her daughter were still sitting on the back of an ambulance. Harper lay bundled in blankets, oxygen mask steady on her face, eyes half open but responsive. Every few seconds she blinked at the paramedic monitoring her vitals, then at the ruins of her house, as if trying to make sense of both scenes at once. Lydia sat beside her, hands clasped so tightly they trembled. Her silk pajamas were stained, her hair matted with sweat and smoke, but she didn't move from her daughter's side. As I walked closer, the gravel under my boots made her look up. The fierce, rigid expression she always wore at HOA meetings was gone, completely stripped away. Her eyes were hollow, rimmed red, swollen with hours of crying. "Evan," she whispered, standing slowly. She stopped. Not because she couldn't talk, but because she didn't know where to start. There were too many places. Too many wrong turns she'd taken to get here. I nodded once. "Harper's stable. Paramedics say she's responding well." That alone hit her harder than anything else. Her face broke again, not into sobs, but into something quieter, something heavier. Gratitude mixed with guilt, in a way only a parent could feel. Behind us, investigators continued sweeping the wreckage with tools that beeped and crackled softly. One of them called out a confirmation about burn patterns. Another measured structural collapse points. Their voices floated through the air like distant echoes, reminders of how close we'd come to an entirely different outcome. Lydia wrapped her arms around herself and stared at the ruins. "I did this," she said quietly. "I slowed you down. I put my daughter in danger because I thought control meant safety." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't try to defend herself. She just let the truth sit there between us, raw and undeniable. 6 minutes, I said softly, not accusing, just stating what we both knew. "That chain cost you 6 minutes." Her knees wavered. For a second, I thought she might collapse again, but she steadied herself against the ambulance railing. I heard them say that. The investigators, Ruiz, all of you. I heard it every time. She swallowed hard, and that's going to stay in my head for the rest of my life. Around us more neighbors gathered, not to comfort her, not to judge her, just watching silent, unsure what to do. Lydia had been the iron fist of Redwood Canyon for months. Now the iron was gone. All that was left was the person underneath. I reached into the side compartment of Engine 7 and pulled out a small evidence box. Inside was a 6-inch length of the chain we had cut, still warped, still scorched from flaming debris that had fallen onto it during the firefight. I had picked it up earlier without thinking. Now it felt like the right moment. "This is yours," I said. She hesitated before taking it. When her fingers touched the steel, they lingered as if the weight of the metal matched the weight she felt inside. She pressed the box to her chest and exhaled shakily. That chain, her voice cracked. I fought so hard for it, argued with the board, mocked your warnings, all because I wanted order, wanted control. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. But control means nothing if you're blind to the people you hurt. The board members nearby shifted uncomfortably. A few lowered their heads. Others exchanged guilt-stricken glances. None of them stepped forward. A fire marshal approached, hands in his pockets. He cleared his throat lightly. "Miss Cromwell," he said, with careful professionalism, "I'll need to speak with you soon about our findings, but I wanted you to know your daughter's alive today because these firefighters pushed harder than protocol required, and because they ignored obstacles that shouldn't have been there." Lydia nodded without looking up. "I know." He walked off and she turned back to me. "I'm resigning," she said. "Not a question, not a proposal, a decision, effective immediately. No more chains, no more restricted access. I already told the board." She glanced at the neighbors gathered behind her. "They can run the community without me." Her resignation rolled through the crowd in whispers. Shock, relief, acceptance. A paramedic stepped out of the ambulance. "Harper's asking for you," she said gently. Lydia looked at me one last time. "Thank you for saving my daughter. Then, and thank you for not giving up on warning me, even when I didn't deserve it." She climbed into the ambulance. Harper reached for her hand, and Lydia held it like a promise she planned to keep this time. The doors stayed open as the sun rose, fully casting light over everything, the twisted beams, the scorched foundation, the chain post, still standing half-melted in the driveway. A few feet away, the section of broken chain glinted inside the evidence box in Lydia's lap. A reminder, a consequence. And maybe for the first time in Redwood Canyon, a lesson that wouldn't be ignored again.